Hi, welcome to Crime Clueless. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Laura.
There are some cases that are terrifying because they're chaotic, random violence, wrong place, wrong time, no pattern, no warning. And then there are cases that scream the opposite, the ones that feel planned, calm, patient, like someone set a trap and waited for the right person to step into it. The case I have for you today is the latter. It was planned. The one or ones responsible were calm, they were patient, they planned extensively, set a devious trap, and waited to catch someone in it. Today's case isn't just disturbing because of how it panned out, it's because of how Lindsay Buziak died. It's disturbing because of how controlled it feels, how specific it was, and how intentional it feels. And when you look at Lindsay, who she was, where she was in life, who she was around, this case stops feeling like a random tragedy and starts feeling like something much more complicated. Something with layers, with power dynamics, with secrets, with people who might have a lot to lose. Today, we are covering one of Canada's most notorious unsolved cases, the murder of Lindsay Buziak.
I don't like this already. It's sounding very intriguing, but yikes. It's a little bit scary.
It is, absolutely. Lindsay was born April 2nd, 1983 in British Columbia. And when people describe her, the word that comes up again and again isn't just nice, although that does come up. She absolutely was. The word that describes her to a T is capable. She wasn't someone drifting through her 20s. She wasn't trying to figure it out someday. She was already building a life. She was solid, smart, and dedicated. Friends describe her as being social, but not fake. Ambitious, but never ruthless. Styled, polished, emotionally warm, and someone who could talk to literally anyone. She had that skill, the one that makes you good at sales, but also good at friendships, good at networking, good at navigating rooms where maybe you're younger than everyone else. And real estate is exactly that world, especially high-end real estate, and especially for young women in her early 20s. You're walking into rooms where, on the surface level, people might assume that you're inexperienced. They might assume you don't know money yet, and people assume you don't know power. Lindsay proved quickly that she did know those things. In every room she walked in, people quickly understood she was beyond capable. At only 24, she was making a name for herself in this industry, proving she had found her passion and was ready to take the world by storm. Now, she was still early in her career. Again, she was only 24 in early 2008, but she was on a strong trajectory. And this matters because she wasn't desperate for clients, but she was motivated and she was hungry to prove herself. She was willing to hustle and do what it takes. And that combination can sometimes make people push past their instincts. By 2008, Lindsay was working in real estate in Victoria, British Columbia. Victoria is important to understand here because it's not just, quote, a pretty Canadian coastal city, even though it is that. In 2008, Victoria, British Columbia was the kind of place people describe as peaceful without really even thinking about it. The Greater Victoria area had a population of roughly 330,000 people, so decent-sized city. While the city itself was smaller, closer to about 80,000 residents. It wasn't a massive urban center where you felt anonymous. It was the kind of city where people still expected neighborhoods to feel safe, where routines could be and were predictable, and where violent crime, especially something targeted, felt like something that happened somewhere else.
How long had she been in real estate at this point? How long had she been working?
Lindsay was fairly new to the real estate industry. I believe in November of 2007, she had gotten her real estate license. So she's still working at building her business, meeting new clients, referrals, everything like that.
Okay. Were her parents in real estate too then, or other family members?
Lindsay's boyfriend was in the real estate business. He was a mortgage broker. He did have his real estate license and still use that occasionally, but he was now working on the brokerage side of things. Lindsay's dad was a real estate agent as well. He lived in Calgary, not in the same location or city as Lindsay did. And Jason's mom was actually the manager at the Remax office where Lindsay worked. She had quite a bit of family that was in this business. And it feels like after growing up with her dad doing real estate and then meeting Jason, she was living with him at the time. It was a perfect fit for her, her personality. She was so social. She was smart. She loved working with people. This was a great career path for Lindsay. Yeah, good
Okay.
question. Victoria had a unique demographic mix at the time. It had a reputation for being slower paced, partly because of its large retiree population, but it was also growing in other directions. There were young professionals moving in, especially in industries tied to government, tourism, education, and the early growth of the tech sector. 2008, big time for that. It was a
Mhm.
place where you could build a career, but still feel like you lived somewhere coastal, historic, community driven. Like it had the best of both of those worlds. People described it as beautiful, calm, and stable, the kind of place where you didn't have to constantly think about your personal safety in your day to day life. Economically, British Columbia was doing well leading into 2008, and that strength showed up in Victoria's real estate market. Development was active, new builds were going up, housing demand was strong, real estate was competitive, but also full of opportunity, especially for younger agents trying to build their own careers. At the same time, like many port cities with tourism, money flow, development growth, there were always quieter conversations about how legitimate money and illegitimate money can sometimes exist closer together than people realize. Not in a way that most residents think about daily, but in a way that exists in the background of almost every growing coastal economy. Victoria was also heavily shaped by tourism. Millions of visitors came through every year, drawn by the harbor, the historic buildings, and the nice weather. The city leaned into its identity as safe, welcoming, almost feels storybook like, which is part of why what happens next in our case feels so jarring. This wasn't a place people associate with calculated violence. This was a place where people expected to feel comfortable meeting clients, walking neighborhoods, conducting business in daylight without thinking twice. And that contrast between the city the people believed they lived in and what actually happened is part of why this hits so deeply and has never really left the public consciousness. Simply, Victoria is money, old money, development money, tourism money, and like most port cities, there are whispers of drug trafficking networks moving through those maritime channels. And I'm not saying Lindsay was involved, but environment matters because where there is legitimate money, there's often illegitimate money nearby. And real estate is historically one of the easiest places for those worlds to overlap. Now, let's talk about Lindsay's life specifically in 2008. This is where some of the background tension might live. At the time of her death, Lindsay was dating a man named Jason, and it might have been a little socially complicated. Jason came from a family deeply connected to real estate development in the region. Again, not suspicious, but it means that Lindsay was operating in a space where reputation mattered, money mattered, relationships were currency, and also information traveled fast. She was dating into a world where business and personal life can blur constantly.
How was their relationship? Was it pretty stable or were they getting along well? What did their relationship look like?
From most public reporting, it seems stable, but, and this is important, Lindsay was also described as independent and strong willed. She wasn't someone easily controlled or who just fell in line with someone else's life plan. And again, that's wonderful, not suspicious. Now, in interviews that Lindsay's dad, Jeff, gave to both NBC Dateline and True Crime Daily, about 6 weeks before Lindsay's death, she had been out visiting him in Calgary, Alberta, which is where her dad lived. And while she was out visiting him, they had had a few conversations about Lindsay's relationship with Jason. And on the one hand, she said, I know he's crazy about me. I am just not sure if this relationship is going to last, though. She mentioned to her dad that he was maybe a little bit jealous and possessive, and those were qualities that she didn't like managing. She was blunt with her dad and told him that she was thinking about ending the relationship. But again, that was 6 weeks before this happened, and they're still dating. So maybe something had happened right before she went to visit, and she was feeling this way, but maybe those feelings changed, or maybe they hadn't, and she just hadn't made a final decision yet. But you have both sides when we talk about their relationship at the time. She wasn't naive, but she also wasn't easily manipulated, which matters when we get to these final days of her life. Let's zoom out for a second. I want you to imagine Lindsay in early 2008. She's 24. She's attractive, beautiful. She's socially connected. She's working in this industry that it's really important that you build your reputation on trust and perception. She's dating into a powerful business adjacent family, but she's also building financial independence.
Do you know, did she really like real estate and want to stay in real estate, or was that kind of a way that she was building up to something more?
I think she really liked real estate and liked what she was building for herself. I'm not exactly sure if her ultimate goal was to move into having her own real estate firm or something like that, but it does sound like she really liked what she was doing. Working with his family, who is really high up in the real estate business world, made her visible pretty quick, which can be good, but also that can mean people notice you, they watch you. Maybe it's a little bit easier for people to learn your routine, learn how you operate. Let's go to the moment that starts everything. On January 29th, 2008, a phone call came in. Lindsay got a call from a woman who has a strong accent. And immediately there are weird things about this call. Not scary enough to call police, but strange enough that Lindsay mentions it to people around her, which in hindsight is a massive red flag. Most people don't talk about the normal day to day client calls, especially when it's just another person looking to see one of your properties, right?
Did she say something weird, or was it just like her intuition that it felt off?
She had some weird demands. So she said that her and her husband were moving to the area. They had a good deal of money. They wanted a high end home. This client was also specific that fast was 2 days. They wanted a home they could close in 2 days, which probably meant they were planning on paying cash. Getting a mortgage in 2 days is unheard of. So that's another great thing for real estate agents. If you could get this woman her dream home in just a few days, get it closed, fantastic. When Lindsay was talking to this woman, she mentioned that they were looking for a home specific They wanted 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. They were looking to spend around $1 million. They also wanted to make sure that there were separate living quarters for live in help. So, this would be a massive sale for Lindsay. If you know about real estate, you know agents work on commission, and getting the commission from $1 million sale would be amazing. They wanted something that was already vacant, which isn't necessarily normal, but they said they wanted something fast. And the fastest way to get into a new home is when nobody's living there. So, wanting something to move into fast, I mean, it makes sense. They wanted something nobody lived in. But one detail that has haunted investigators is that this woman asked for Lindsay specifically, not the brokerage, not any available client that can get to her fast, not whoever's working today, specifically Lindsay. She asked the woman how she got her contact because the call came straight to Lindsay. It didn't go through the agency. And this woman told her that it was a referral, which is great. When you're a real estate agent, referrals are hugely helpful. This woman said, "This is who gave me your contact information." And reporting says that Lindsay tried to reach out to this woman to find out about this client, but also probably to thank her for the referral. And she couldn't get a hold of the client, which is kind of odd. You would think cell phones, emails, there would be a really good way to reach out to this woman. With the accent, Lindsay said that it sounded Spanish, but not really. She couldn't quite place it. It almost made her feel like the woman was using a fake accent to try and disguise her voice, which is a weird thing to do. And this call feels pretty creepy. The caller felt very controlling, very calm, and very specific about the timing, when they would meet, the property type, and the viewing logistics. And also, if you've listened to our case on Beverly Carter, we talked about some of these same things where it's important to meet in the office first. It's important to not meet somewhere where no one else is. But when you're going about this day after day, and this is what you're doing all the time, it may not feel very out of the ordinary or scary in the moment. But this caller specifically did not want to meet in the office. She only wanted to meet directly at a property.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily feel weird. I mean, when we were moving down here, we met with a realtor at a house. Like we had never met him before. We hadn't even
Mhm.
talked to him. I think we had talked to someone else who sent him. He was with the other lady who we had spoke to. He was like her assistant or somebody.
Oh,
But he
wow.
met us at a vacant house. So it's not like an uncommon thing, which is
Yeah,
unfortunate because like for her, because that may not have been as weird of a request, but in hindsight, it definitely
right.
is. But it's scary with real estate that way. If you're meeting these people you've never met before and you want to assume they have good intentions, they want to buy a house, they want to use your
Hmm.
services. So it's
Absolutely.
unfortunate that people have to think this way, that maybe it is a trap
That,
or something, you
right,
know?
right. Yes, agreed. The thing that sticks with me is that Lindsay reportedly told people that she got a bad vibe. So there was more also than just all of those demands and being asked for specifically. I feel like when you're asked for specifically, you can feel like it's a compliment. They've seen your work before. They know you're good at negotiating. They know you're good at contracts. They know whatever the case may be. So I could see maybe also brushing that part off. The vacant house, you could see brushing off because they say they want to move in fast. But the fact that she told people she got a bad vibe is interesting. And she didn't say, "I'm terrified" or "I think I'm in danger." It was just unease. And How many times have we all ignored that feeling because we don't want to
Mhm.
seem dramatic, we don't want to seem rude, paranoid, or difficult? So we brush it off and tell ourselves that
It'll
we're
be okay.
overthinking it. Exactly.
Yeah. Do you
Exactly.
think she ever thought about canceling? Is there anything about that?
There's no confirmed evidence that she planned to cancel, but she did something small that tells us everything. She asked her boyfriend to be nearby during the showing, not inside, just close by. She was like, we are going to meet at this time. I just have this bad feeling. And can you just be close by while I'm showing them this property? Which to me is her instincts speaking up in a way that is less dramatic, less paranoid, perhaps. Her brain saying something is off. I can't explain it, but I don't want to be alone in this situation. And I want to pause here because this is where Lindsay becomes very real. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't naive. She wasn't careless. She was doing what millions of people do every day, trying to balance that safety instinct with her career ambitions, her goals. Saying no to clients can cost you deals, it can cost you future referrals, your reputation, especially when you are still new in this industry and you're working on building your name. Let's talk about the property that these people wanted to see. The house chosen for the showing was vacant, like they had asked for. It was in a quiet neighborhood, not easily visible from main traffic. It was a new construction, and this meant that there were no neighbors watching constantly, no residents obviously living inside. If you were planning something, a very controlled environment. Whoever set this up, they chose the agent, they chose the property, they chose the timing, they chose during the day, towards the evening, but still during the day. Less suspicious than demanding you meet at 9 p.m. at night. They chose a scenario where she would willingly walk inside. Now we move to February 2nd, 2008. In the days leading up to the showing, nothing in Lindsay's life suggests that she thought she was in danger. She was living normally, working normally, socializing, which is important because it suggests if this was targeted, it was not obvious to her. We hear in cases so often about people feeling like they're being watched or feeling unease about a certain situation. And it doesn't appear that Lindsay had those thoughts right then. But she still wanted Jason nearby. And that one decision, that tiny instinct that's telling her something feels off here, is definitely a heartbreaking part of this case. It tells us she was listening to herself, but not loudly enough to cancel meeting with these people.
Do you think if she had canceled that they would have tried to meet with her again or maybe would have tried somebody else?
That is a chilling question because if this was targeted for something specifically, then maybe yes.
That is chilling.
Yeah. By the morning of February 2nd, 2008, Lindsay is living her best life. She's running errands, talking to people, making plans. There's no dramatic behavior that day. It was just real life, normal life. People don't get this cinematic warning. They're just going about their day, which maybe gives me more chills than most things when I really sit and think about it. And by late afternoon, she's heading towards the showing. She existed in a world where this showing was just another appointment. And I want you to hold on to that because this wasn't a late night showing in a sketchy location. This was early evening. It was still daylight. It was a new construction in a nice neighborhood. And she was planning to meet professional clients. At least that's what she believed. The showing is scheduled for 5:30 p.m. The location, De Sousa Place in Saanich, British Columbia. This is not a high crime area. This is not somewhere that would naturally trigger a high alert feeling. It's suburban, quiet, residential, upper middle class, the kind of place where neighbors do notice unfamiliar cars, but not necessarily right away, and especially somewhere with new construction happening. Earlier that day, Lindsay confirms plans with her boyfriend Jason. She asked him to be nearby during the showing, not in the house, not hovering, just close. Close enough to feel safe, close enough to help if something feels off.
Did she tell him why she wanted him close by? Do we know?
Not in a fully documented, recorded way, but multiple accounts suggest that she had mentioned feeling uneasy about these clients. Not scared, but just that off feeling. And if you're a woman listening to this, or honestly just a human, you know that feeling. The one that you can't fully explain, but it lingers. During the day, we talked about the other things Lindsay had done. She'd also grabbed food with Jason. He had to run a quick errand, and they had parted ways after meeting up to grab like a late lunch, early dinner. He let her know that he would meet her at the house. He said he might be there just a little bit after 5:30, but according to True Crime Daily, Lindsay got there just before 5:30, and the lockbox on the house was opened at 5:29 p.m. Jason at this time is done with his errand. He has a friend with him. The two of them were going to play a hockey game later that evening. So they had spent some of the earlier time together. And then this friend agreed to go with him while Lindsay was doing the showing. Jason texts Lindsay around 5:30, and that was just to let her know that he was finishing the errand. And to this text, Lindsay opened it, read it right away, and responded and said, "Okay, I'll see you soon. The clients are just arriving." 8 minutes later, Jason texts Lindsay again to say that he was still a couple minutes away. Now, with this text, Lindsay didn't respond, and she never even opened it. He's probably thinking she's in with the clients. Maybe it would be rude to be on her phone. He's not too upset or alarmed or anything like that at this point. Jason and his friend pull into the driveway at 5:45, and he sees what he assumes are the potential buyers at the front door. He's wondering if maybe they're just getting there because they walk inside the home. Jason decides at this point he doesn't want to come across as overbearing or getting in the way of this showing that's really important to Lindsay. So instead of staying in the driveway, he drives down the main street in front of the house and parks. So he can still see the house from there, but now the clients won't notice that he's right there. He waits 10 or so minutes, and then he texts Lindsay again to see if she's about done. This text is right around 5:55. She doesn't open that one or respond. He's getting a little worried, but he just saw those people go in 10 minutes before. So that's a normal amount of time. He doesn't want to be in her way, and he decides to wait. Him and his friend are in the car down the street watching this house at 6:05. He hasn't seen the clients leave yet, and Lindsay still hasn't opened or read his text that he sent. He's getting a little bit worried at this point because the showing was supposed to start at 5:30, and while he did see the people go in there at 5:45ish, he's still thinking, okay, 20 minutes is a decent amount of time for a showing. It's odd that she hasn't opened my text yet. He gets out of the car with his friend, and they walk up to the house and knock on the front door. No one answers. He doesn't hear any voices inside or anything like that. He thought maybe they just didn't hear it if they were in the back part of the house or something. He rings the doorbell. Still no response. He doesn't hear people walking around inside. Again, doesn't hear anybody talking. No response is when Jason goes, "Okay, this feels off, and I'm just going to go in there and make sure she's okay." He actually had papers with him. He was selling a property. He was the selling agent, and Lindsay was the agent for the buyers. And he had these papers, and he was like, okay, maybe I can just go in and make it seem like I'm giving her these papers for a different deal, just check on the situation and make sure everything's fine. He tries the handle to open the door and it's locked. He's worried enough at this point to call 911 and he just asks for police to come and do a welfare check. While he's on the phone with police still, he is walking around the side of the house and notices that the back patio door is open just a few inches. He hangs up, and according to him, in an interview that he gave with Dateline, he kind of boosts his friend up over the fence so that his friend can go in through the house. He can open the front door for Jason and they can go inside. His friend goes through, opens the front door. Jason comes in. He starts calling for Lindsay. There's nothing, no response, no sound back. He can't hear her talking to the buyers or the buyers talking to her or anything. It's silent. He notices when he walks in that Lindsay's shoes are right by the front door, which you would expect when you're going through a house, especially a new high end house. You're going to take your shoes off as you're walking through and showing it to your buyers. He looks around on the main level, he doesn't see anything. So he goes upstairs, and at the top of the stairs is the master bedroom for this house. He sees Lindsay lying on her back on the floor and he sees blood everywhere. Jason immediately calls 911 again, asks them to send an ambulance. He tells them that Lindsay is not breathing. He tries to do CPR, he does everything he can, but it was too late. Police arrived just a couple minutes later. They were actually there for the welfare check that Jason had asked for the first time. This part's a little bit confusing in the reporting. There are some reports on some news sources that say Lindsay was stabbed 10 to 15 times. There are others that say dozens of times, and still other reporting that says over 40 times. There's a lot of conflicting information that comes through this case, and this is one of those things. Meet time, like I said, was 5:30. Around 5:30 p.m., witnesses report seeing a couple arrive. Descriptions vary slightly, but overall, they say a man and a woman who are well dressed, have a professional appearance, calm body language, no visible rush or panic. According to one witness who saw the two people, they had walked up the street towards the house, and this witness saw the two introduce themselves to Lindsay. The witness unfortunately only saw the man from behind. Their best guess was that he was around 6 feet tall, and they described him as Caucasian. They got a better look at the woman. She is described as being 35 to 40 years old. They describe her wearing a really distinctive dress. And you can find pictures of this dress and police to put out a composite sketch based on what the witness told them about this woman. The dress is black and white, also bright pink. It just looked like a professional couple that were coming to look at this house. Police had hoped that the dress would be designer or a little bit more rare when this person described it to them. Unfortunately, it turns out that you could buy this dress in a bunch of different department stores all over. So that didn't really help. The woman is described as possibly wearing a blonde wig, not confirmed, but reported in multiple accounts and sources. And this is one of the creepiest pieces of this case to me because if it's true, we've got premeditation layered on premeditation. They're not just planning murder, they're planning to conceal their identity and planning witness misdirection.
Do investigators think that they were disguising themselves then?
Publicly, they've never confirmed the wig use as fact, but it is widely discussed as a possibility based on multiple witness impressions.
So it wasn't like you know, maybe she doesn't have hair and it was just a wig. It was like a fake
It
looking wig.
Yes, because
Okay.
if it was more real looking, you would think that wouldn't come up, right?
Yeah.
Myself, I'm picturing something that's either over the top blonde or maybe too shiny,
Too
something
big or something. I don't
mhm,
know. Okay.
something that makes it feel like a wig to people who saw them,
Okay.
which is interesting, right?
Were there other people around in the neighborhood who saw them go in then, like from their houses?
There were, yeah. And I don't know if they were checking on their own builds. Maybe there were a few homes nearby that were already done that people lived in. We have like a house across the street that's been for sale for a while. And we'll notice when someone goes in to look at that house, like, oh, they could be our neighbors. We know whoever was living there has already moved out.
Right. Yeah.
And we'll notice especially on a Saturday when there are multiple showings, especially when they park right in front of my house.
Yeah. I know when we were building our house, every time we would come over, neighbors would wave at us or,
Mhm.
they'd be outside playing and we would see
Right.
them or whatever. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And that kind of feels like they must have known there would be people around and they didn't want to be identified or have a description if those people talked to police after.
Well, and
I
if they
felt
had
like.
been there before, if they had
Mhm.
been there to stake out the place, maybe people had seen them going up to the house or being in the area. So they didn't want to be able to be identified. Oh, I saw this person these separate occasions,
Mhm.
and here's a good
Exactly.
description of what they look like. Maybe each time they went, they wore a different disguise.
Definitely. I think that is probably exactly what happened.
Yeah.
The couple meets Lindsay. There's no known struggle outside. There's no signs that she tried to run, no evidence that she felt immediate threat. They must have been convincing, polished. She went inside with them to look at this home. Once inside, Lindsay was attacked. We know the attack was brutal, fast, targeted. It's not messy, chaotic, unplanned violence. This was close contact, highly controlled, specific violence.
Was it pretty quick then? Did anyone see them leaving after? Like how long they were in there?
The timing is really tight. That witness that we talked about described seeing them go in the house right at 5:30. We know that Lindsay unlocked the lockbox at 5:29. When investigators were looking at everything they knew, they think this happened as soon as they walked inside. And when Jason pulled up and saw the couple leaving at 5:45, even though he thought they were just arriving because they went back in the front door, police think that that was them leaving and they saw this car pull up right then. So they went back in the house and probably locked the door behind them. Police found out that Lindsay's phone made a call to someone completely random. They think that it was, similar to a butt dial or a call just made from her pocket. And they think that happened as the attack was happening. And the call was made at 5:41. Really fast, really tight timeline.
That is horrific.
Horrifying. It suggests that whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing and came in with a plan. It's
And that's
not,
the only reason they went, it feels like. That's
yeah,
so
absolutely, because there's no confirmed robbery. I mean, we know the house was vacant, they didn't take her stuff. There's no confirmed sexual assault, there's no ransacking. Nothing suggests that this was an opportunistic crime. For some reason, it was about Lindsay, not the house, not money, not random violence. And while this is happening, Jason is nearby. He's texting her, expecting a normal showing timing, but then she stops responding. There is a window minutes long where everything changed and no one outside knew yet.
That's so weird the doors were locked.
Yeah,
If you're just doing a house showing, why would that happen, you know?
exactly. Because when you're just kind of pulling that door closed behind you, the front door that you've walked in, you're not locking it behind you.
Yeah.
And that had to be those two locking the door just in case someone tried to come look at the house right after them,
Mhm.
whatever. And this is debated online a lot, but I mean, realistically, he didn't know anything bad had happened. He probably thought that she was busy. He could have tried to convince himself that her phone died or didn't really have good service inside, but he did call 911 really quickly, which is interesting. To
And
me,
maybe
it feels
because I was gonna say maybe he did call 911 quickly because she had that bad feeling. She didn't feel
yes.
good about the situation. She wanted him to come. And now she's not responding. The door's locked. He can't get a hold of her. If he's already on edge, it makes sense to call 911 right away, in my thoughts.
I feel like her communication with him about the unease must have been enough to where he was feeling uneasy
Yeah,
too
exactly.
to
Yeah.
call 911 that fast.
Yeah. So wait, the people were in there, so he never saw them leave? Okay.
So I think that they locked the deadbolt and maybe the other one and left either to buy them more time or just to make sure that no one walked in. But it is a
Mm.
very fast, small window right there
Yeah. Yeah.
for how long from when she was first in there to when they arrived to when police arrived. Really
Well, and
fast.
even from when he went up to the door, they must
Right.
have done the attack and booked it out the back door for him to not
Yes.
see anything. Yeah, it just feels like so weird that he wouldn't be able to see them. And if it is a lot of new builds, maybe they could run out into another house and hide or something, but I don't know.
When investigators did walk in right away, they believed that this attack was direct, focused, not rage induced. It was planned with confidence, and they thought possibly whoever did this was experienced, like they had done this before.
Do we think it was just one person who attacked her or both of them?
That is a great question. It's debated heavily. Specifically, we know two people went into the home. That doesn't automatically mean that both attacked, but many believe that having two people that were both attacking her increased the speed at which it happened and the control of the situation.
Well, and it could be one attacker and one outlook person, someone
Right.
watching to make sure no one was coming up to the house.
Yes.
Well, someone else attacked her.
Now, you mentioned how they left without being spotted. We know that they leave and they essentially vanish, which is one of the biggest mysteries in this case. They don't think that was how they were planning to leave the scene. Now, it was light when they got there. It was right as the sun was setting. So by the time Jason got there, it was pretty dark and he didn't really get a good view of them. Police brought in a canine unit to see if they could follow the scent of this couple. They assumed that they had exited out the back because Jason was parked in the front. And also, that door was a little bit open when Jason and his friend went over to try to get into the house. It is wild that they were able to leave without anybody seeing them leave. Jason never saw them come out the front door. There are no witnesses that saw them going around the back or climbing over a fence or getting into another car. They brought in dogs that can trace your scent. The dog doesn't pick anything up though. It's gone. They believe that there must have been a car, maybe a driver waiting for them, some third person that maybe they called at that time. There had to be some way that they left, but investigators weren't able to find that. We have no confirmed vehicle ID, no confirmed direction of travel, which leads me to believe either two ways to come in and out or a way to park your vehicle so you can get right back to it and leave.
Feel like that's so suspicious. If you're going to look at a vacant house, wouldn't you park in the driveway? Like if they parked
Right.
down the street and walked up, that feels really odd to me
To me too.
because the people saw them walk in. You
Hmm.
would have think they would have seen their car if
Right.
they're right in front of their house, but if they didn't see a car there, that's
Right.
really odd.
That's what I'm trying to work out in my head is how they got from witnesses seeing them go in, but then nobody seeing them leave.
And no one's seen their car.
Right. And when you stab somebody, you have to have blood on you.
Yeah. Especially, I guess, unless they had other clothes that they were wearing that they took off.
Yep.
Maybe she had a big purse or something they put it in.
Could have. Yeah. Or like a coat that they were wearing that almost shielded
Covered
and
it.
then threw that in,
Yeah.
possibly. The investigation started immediately and it gets a little bit controversial because, like most cases, police started close to the victim, which meant they were looking at her boyfriend, who was there, sort of. They were looking at her friends, family, work relationships, people that she's working with, and also clients that she's working with. This is where public criticism begins later because a lot of people feel like investigators had tunnel vision early on. They questioned Jason. They looked at her social circle. They pulled phone records. They went through all of her financials. And from everything that they've made public, there's no evidence tying anybody in her life to what happened to her. But we know time is important in investigations, and every hour spent in one direction is an hour not spent somewhere else. And that's where some critics believe that early momentum or things that they could have done early on was lost because they're focusing on her boyfriend, they're focusing on her friends, and not this couple that
Yeah.
we're seen walking in. I mean, yes, it could have been someone in her social circle walking in that had
Dressed
set
up.
up this meeting, sure, but the tunnel vision is just really hard to come back from.
So wait, you said that they pulled like her phone records and she had talked to them. Were they able to find anything from that?
Unfortunately, no. It appears that they used a burner style phone, which was hard to trace, had a limited lifespan, and in 2008, even less information than what they can get now. They weren't able to find any kind of long term digital footprint from the phone that contacted her. That really is a scary thought, too, because that's not impulsive on their end. That is planning.
Yeah. So they really did think of everything their disguise, their phones, all that stuff. That's really scary.
Yeah, yeah. That really is what makes this case so unsettling because it feels so targeted. And we really just don't know
Yeah.
why they
It's so
targeted her like
similar
this.
to Beverly Carter. It makes me just think
Hmm.
all the safety tips we talked about then. It's so important because it's not just a one
Yes.
off. Like this happens, and that's really
Yeah.
scary.
The interesting difference to me with Beverly Carter was their plan was a kidnapping to get money
Ransom.
from her family, right? This does not feel like they wanted anything from her or her
Yeah.
family, right?
Right. True.
Specific to get her to this location at this specific time and then have this end up happening.
Yeah, that's true.
When this case first broke, any case first breaks, especially a homicide, there's this small window of time where everything is still fluid. We've got witness memories that are fresh, phone data that you can get into right away. look at movement patterns, and people are ready to talk to investigators and they're thinking about it. When investigators don't talk to those people that have some kind of information or help or input, those people think that whatever they saw isn't important or not needed. And a lot of times,
Yeah,
I think they don't ever come forward. They
right.
feel like investigators must not have needed to see what these people looked like or to hear if I heard anything or saw anything. They must have everything they need.
Yeah, or they
And
must not realize, even though I'm here, that I might have something important. So it probably isn't important if they didn't
right.
come to me
And
as a neighbor or something.
yes, and they don't go forward on their own because they don't feel like it's needed.
Yeah.
We know the first 48 to 72 hours really can shape the entire life of a case. And in Lindsay's case, this is where the public trust and the police strategy really started to separate. And it's not because police did nothing, but because of what they did and what they didn't publicly show or didn't do, created this vacuum. And that happened really intensely in Lindsay's case. Immediately after Lindsay's murder, Saanich police classified this as a homicide investigation. They publicly said that it appeared to be a targeted attack that shifted the investigative direction pretty quickly. A targeted homicide means that it's not random, it's not a burglary gone wrong. Usually, it's not stranger violence in the sense that we tend to think of it. It means someone either wanted Lindsay dead or wanted to send a message through what happened to Lindsay. It's very specific when they come out and say a targeted homicide.
Did they say why they thought it was targeted?
Not in full detail publicly, but from everything they did say, it sounds like they were talking about the setup, the fake client scenario, the lack of theft, how fast it happened, and how fast whoever did this was able to disappear. Random attackers don't usually target like a real estate showing in a unoccupied vacant house or, a showing. Now, standard investigative procedure begins, and this is important to say clearly, looking at the boyfriend first, normal, looking towards family first, normal, looking at close friends, normal. Statistically, most victims know their killer. Jason is questioned extensively. His timeline is verified. It probably was lucky for him that he had a friend with him in the car when
Oh,
this
yeah.
happened.
That's very lucky.
Because otherwise, he would have not really had a good way to verify that he was waiting in the car and didn't follow her inside.
Yes, totally. No, that is really good that he had a friend.
hmm His movements were checked. They reviewed his phone activity publicly. Police never charge him or name him as a suspect, and they never present any evidence tying him to planning this or executing the murder. But the public narrative got complicated because investigations aren't just about facts, they're about time allocation. And some critics, including Lindsay's father, believe that too much time early on was spent looking inward, looking at Jason, looking at her friends, and not enough time looking outward to try to be very balanced. We can say that both of these can be true at once. Police can follow normal protocol, and families can absolutely still feel like opportunities were lost.
Yeah, for
Let's
sure.
talk about the phone a little bit more. His burner phone was registered to a fake name and a fake address in Vancouver. According to the website lindsaybuziakmurder.com, the phone they found had been purchased from a convenience store in 2007 in November. They had kept this phone completely inactive until January, which is when Lindsay got the first call. They were able to find on this phone that the cell was used only to make phone calls to Lindsay and not for anything else. The phone had called Lindsay about 6 times in the days leading up to her murder. After Lindsay's murder, the phone was never used again. I was
Yeah.
listening to a case a couple of days ago, and the person had used a burner phone and waited 31 days before turning it on because I guess whatever it tracks goes for 30 days. And
Oh,
they knew that. And they never used the phone in those first 30 days and then started using it on day 31.
oh,
And
interesting.
that is still an unsolved case from Colorado. Police believe that because they used a burner phone, it was something bigger than just someone being angry at Lindsay or whatever. It shows a lot of planning went into what happened to her.
Do they think that they had done this before, or is there like any serial killer type people in that area that have this type of MO?
Behavioral analysts have said, and this is uncomfortable because they say possibly, but not guaranteed, that they do think whoever did this had extensive knowledge of how to do it correctly. And whether that means that this was the first time, that doesn't mean it was the last. Or maybe it wasn't the first time that they had done this. And where you mentioned serial killer behavior, it points towards professional as opposed to a serial killer with an MO, where a professional killer could mix up how they commit the crime, the
Okay.
details, everything that goes into it, how organized it was, how low evidence it was. They didn't find things linking whoever did this to any kind of DNA or any digital footprint, anything like that, that they could correlate with either other offenders or it just felt experienced. Let's talk about something rarely discussed in depth, the psychology of a lure based homicide. This case is textbook for that structure. So, lure, like bringing Lindsay to that house,
Mhm.
those types of crimes require confidence, preparation. They require social performance skills to make your person show up where you want them to, when you want them to, and absolutely emotional detachment. You have to convince someone to walk willingly into this place alone, which is chilling. I think that's what really hits me about her wanting Jason there, just not necessarily
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
I do wonder if she had, because if they said specifically, we want you and only you alone, I don't know
Yeah.
that she would have gone in there. But I wonder what would have happened if she had just asked him to come in and show the house with her.
Yeah.
Jason actually had a pretty commanding presence. He was 6'3", around 240 pounds. He had played semi pro hockey before, really had that commanding presence. If they weren't ready for two people,
Yeah. I don't know. This still gives me like serial killer type vibes.
absolutely.
With that, like the
Instances.
social performance skills, the emotional detachment, all those things you were saying, like
Hmm.
setting up the murder. I don't know. It feels kind of like that. I don't know.
I do feel like professional killers are serial killers. Serial killers don't necessarily opposite with the professional. They
Level.
can get messy and emotional and chaotic, but
Yeah.
I do think that line is very blurred. I think you can
Yeah.
absolutely be both, like you said. Lindsay's father, Jeff, becomes one of the loudest voices pushing for answers from investigators. Family advocacy can do two things: it can keep cases alive, which is important. Also, sometimes it can create friction with law enforcement, depending on the size of their egos. Jeff has publicly expressed belief that investigators didn't follow certain leads hard enough, that certain social or criminal connections weren't fully explored, and the case should have progressed faster. Regardless of whether police agree, his advocacy at least has kept Lindsay's name in the public eye for years.
In cases like this, do families ever get more information than the public? Even, if there are
Yes,
things that they're not releasing to the public, is the family privy to that?
yes, sometimes, but a lot of times not everything. And it really depends on where it happened and what happened. A lot of times, families will feel like they're being kept in the dark, even when police believe that keeping them in the dark protects the case.
There was
I,
that one case with Molly. I was just thinking
mhm,
where he was trying to get her records and all the case files for years and years and years, and still.
absolutely. I think sometimes they will let them know if something is going to come out publicly before it comes out. I don't believe that they share very many details at all, which would be so frustrating as the family,
Yeah, for
wanting to
sure.
know. And also feeling like you're on the same side. You want whoever did this to be held accountable. And if
Mhm.
things slip out to the media or to other people in the area when they don't know who committed it, then that could make it so the case doesn't stand a chance at trial.
Mhm.
And sometimes you don't even know who not to let it slip to. So I can absolutely see both sides of that, I guess. Let's talk about the evidence, or at least what has been said publicly. Police have said that they have evidence that has not been released, which is good. We know if you release everything, you lose confession verification power. You can't filter false tips as easily. And when you release things you shouldn't, future suspect leverage is shaky at best. But to the public and to the family, that can feel like silence. One of the biggest frustrations is that they have no confirmed suspect. They have never named a person of interest. We know there have never been any arrests. Now, over a decade, kind of getting close to 2 decades. We're at 18 years since this happened. I do think it's important to remember that unsolved doesn't mean unsolvable. We just either don't have the technology, we don't have key witnesses, or they have evidence, but it doesn't meet that arrest threshold to where they can name someone.
Did she have defensive wounds or like anything under her fingernails?
They actually found no defensive wounds on Lindsay, which led investigators to believe that she had been attacked from behind, completely in a surprise blitz type attack. As far as I know, there's been no DNA evidence found either in the home, on Lindsay, under her fingernails, or anything like that. It's wild to have a knife attack like this and leave behind no DNA evidence.
Mm, okay. I always think I'm like, if anyone ever attacked me, I'd be like scratching their face, ripping out their hair, like
Mhm.
stuff everywhere.
Everything. I want
Catch this
DNA so
person.
that you can catch this person.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Police also believe that people out there know more than they're saying. There's more than just one person involved. I'm curious how this person got Lindsay's personal cell phone number. It leads me to believe someone must have given it to this woman, but who? So there has to be somebody out there who knows something else. Whether those people just haven't come forward out of fear, loyalty, whatever, there is always the chance that someone in the future will, or they'll try to use it to their advantage when they do get caught for a different crime. There were some investigative limitations specific to 2008. We didn't have widespread home camera networks. The cell triangulation was less advanced, especially with the burner phone. There wasn't really automated license plate capture, less digital footprint. Now that would help solve a crime like this. Everybody on the street would have a ring camera or a Nest or whatever. You would have a lot more to go off of than what they had It is interesting that the offenders chose daylight, which sounds counterintuitive, but daylight reduced suspicion for, like we mentioned, the lure based homicides.
Yeah.
People are more likely to assume that it's legitimate. Also, movements from whoever did this blend into the normal day to day traffic as opposed to at night. Witnesses don't watch as closely during the day, they're paying attention at night. Night crimes attract attention, and crimes during the day can blend in. I think there's something uniquely frustrating about cases that feel too organized. Chaotic crimes leave mistakes, but organized crimes like this, it leaves this absence of DNA, of the digital footprint of everything, which makes it a lot harder to investigate. There are a few theories in this case that we'll talk about, some of the different, most widely talked about from family, from investigators, and a little bit of the ones that have been amplified on the internet.
Is there one theory that police lean more towards or her family or anything that they've said?
Police publicly, no, they don't lean towards anything out loud. Behaviorally, some scenarios match the structure of the crime more than others, and the requests for tips and what they have put out does lean a little bit more towards one. Her family leans more towards this first theory, which I honestly think police now lean more towards, and that's that it was a contract or a hired killing, which, different from a Hollywood assassin with like a silencer and black gloves, things like that. Most contract killings globally are very low tech. Usually they'll use a knife, possibly a gun, very rarely a silencer. They're fast, targeted, target specific, and whoever committed the crime disappears immediately. This homicide checks all of those boxes. We know that Lindsay was chosen in advance to a controlled location that they chose. They had a very low forensic footprint. It happened so quickly. There was no theft, no chaos, nothing prolonged. All of the things that we see from behavioral, emotional driven crimes, this feels more like hired or contract killing.
Were there people in her life who didn't like her and would want to hire killer for her?
That's what I can't figure out is what piece we're missing.
Mhm.
So we know all of those things about what actually happened, but the why, that I don't have a good answer for.
The only thing I was thinking, because it seemed like she was generally well liked, but
Hmm.
maybe if there was another realtor who was jealous of her or felt like they were getting slighted because maybe she was getting more deals than they were or something like that. But to hire a killer, that seems so over the top for just someone who's jealous of your work ethic.
Right.
That's and if they
That's
questioned all of her coworkers, did they find people who were not happy with her?
not that I've come across. I don't feel like it has anything to do with her work, except that is how they contacted her and got her alone. There's a man named Gary Rogers. He's done a lot of research on this case, and he has a blog that we'll link. He talks about one of the strongest theories in the murder of Lindsay was connected to a drug cartel in the area. So remember how we talked about Lindsay traveling to visit her dad in Calgary, Alberta, about 6 weeks before she died? While Lindsay was there, she reached out to an old friend she knew from high school. There was one phone call and there was also a Facebook message. This old friend was a drug dealer who did have connections to a cocaine cartel. He wasn't a good friend of Lindsay's. She didn't talk to him regularly. And as far as I can tell, police have never said if they know why she reached out to him. And the timing is odd because this friend didn't live in Calgary anymore. He lived in Victoria where Lindsay was. So the timing of that message and that call is interesting. There's no known drug use or anything like that by Lindsay. As far as we know, she wasn't connected to any drug trafficking or any illegal activities. It could just be a very random coincidence. Now, at the time that she reached out in December of 2007, police were launching this massive investigation into drug trafficking operations in Victoria. The operation was called High Noon. And in late January of 2008, police closed in on this and made their bust. They seized a lot of cash as well as 67 kilos of cocaine, which is worth over $2 million. There were more than a dozen people charged during this bust, including the person that Lindsay had tried to reach when she was in Calgary. A detective from the Sandwich police said that after this raid, people lost a lot of money. This chief is quoted as saying that whoever lost the money and lost the drugs, they know that someone was working with police. It doesn't appear that this person was Lindsay, but it appears that they were trying to figure out who basically helped police bring down this cartel. And it is possible that a hit was ordered on someone to set an example. We know that Lindsay was not the police informant. As far as information that's publicly available, she was not connected to this, but it is one theory that comes up in connection with Lindsay's case.
Hmm. Interesting. It feels like there has to be more. And I know you said that there is details they have that they're not providing to the public, but
hmm I would really like to know what those are.
it feels like it must be something like that if they're leaning more towards this theory that someone
hmm
hired someone to kill her. There had to have been a motive.
Exactly. And
It's
why
not just
her?
like, oh, this is fun.
hmm
There's got to be a reason.
Yeah, there
Hmm.
absolutely does. And I wish I knew more about the people in her life compared to
Yeah.
just. Next theory is a criminal network message or that Lindsay knew something she wasn't supposed to. And the theory is less that Lindsay was the target personally, but connected to some sort of information risk. This theory usually suggests that she overheard something she wasn't supposed to, she knew something she shouldn't, possibly connected socially to someone involved in this situation where she knew something or accidentally learned something she wasn't supposed to. And not, again, that she was the criminal, but that she might have had proximity.
Was there any proof that she was connected to any kind of crimes or criminal
Mm-mm,
people?
no, which is important because then we're still left with that huge why. And also, that means people know things that they have not shared,
Hmm.
which is the opportunity for witnesses to come forward in the future to help make this case solvable.
Yeah.
The next one is personal target, jealousy, or obsession. Is it possible? Yes. Is it supported strongly? Not really. We've talked about, emotional killers usually show either overkill or a chaotic scene, panicking after they committed the crime, leaving a lot more evidence. Also, communication attempts that we don't really see in this case. This crime feels more controlled rather than emotional.
Do a lot of times they say, though, that stabbings are more personal?
Yeah, that is a good point. Knife crimes, especially stabbing and multiple stab wounds, they usually will say exactly that. If someone is stabbed 50 times that it's emotional and very personal. Organized knife attacks exist, though, when they don't want to use a gun, they want to be quiet. They want low ballistic evidence. We're not using shell casings. You can't trace it really. That is other times where we've seen, they're very focused on it being personal because it was a knife attack and then it ends up not being.
Yeah.
So it can be a good indicator, but in this case, I don't think that it really fits it. They also mention along this line that there could be some sort of real estate industry conflict, which gets a little bit messy because real estate can overlap with money laundering, organized crime investment, debt disputes. There's no public evidence tying Lindsay to any of that, but investigators, we know that they talked to people she worked with. They went through her work contacts. So they were checking into that. Nothing has come out publicly, though, that they found related to that. Some speculative theories that have popped up online, one that I don't think really deserves any talk time is a mistaken identity because they asked for her specifically, they called repeatedly, they had this structured interaction. I don't think that there's any way, unless there's someone with her exact same name that they thought they were calling and they got her.
Another Lindsay.
hmm Maybe messed up the last name, something like that.
Her last
You
name's pretty distinctive, though.
agreed. I think so too. They do talk about serial killers or psychopathic killers also, but it has too many aspects that fit into the other options for me to lean into that too hard.
The only way I would think that that would be more of a possibility is like a stalkerish behavior, psychopathic killer, someone
hmm
along that lines who had been following her, who knew what she did, who knew her name, knew where she worked, could call and set this up.
Yeah.
That's where I would see something like that. But
That's where, yeah,
that's
like the
all.
overlap, the blurring of the
Yeah.
lines between the two, where it is somebody who is more methodical, more controlled in what they do. And we have seen serial killers like that, like Israel Keys. We have no
Mhm.
idea how many victims he had because he was methodical, he was patient. He he got chaotic towards the end, but he was able to continue his killings completely under the radar for more than a decade. That's also debated, even how long. So, yeah, it absolutely could be somebody random which was his MO too. Honestly, it is the same time and not far away from where he lived, now that I think about it. But there's only one of him.
Unless he was training somebody.
That's terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
He would be the opposite. Like he would kill two people at once on his
Yeah.
own that were two adults. Very, very terrifying. Yeah. I think he did commit crimes in Canada in 2008, but that's just me. As of today, her case is still unsolved. And time does something strange to unsolved cases. At first, everything is loud. There's press conferences, tips flood in, community fear and outrage. The case is in the media more often. And then slowly it gets quieter. And not because people stop caring, but life moves forward. And the scariest thing about Lindsay's case is that it never fully disappeared, but we also don't have resolution. So it does still pop up. The family still has press conferences. It still gets mentioned in the media, but it is still officially unsolved. It's still officially open. It's active as a homicide file, but unsolved. When unsolved does not mean that there's no evidence or no suspect theory. It doesn't mean they don't have investigative direction. It usually either means they don't have enough proof to meet the charging standards or not enough to win in court, or they're missing one key piece that could come from a witness, a forensic link, possibly a confession, something.
Are they still actively working on it at all, or is it cold case now?
Most long term unsolved homicides do move into cold case management structures, but hers still technically is open and not in the cold case file. So, meaning they still, and even with cold cases, they'll still periodically review them. If new technology comes out, they'll retest or test things they haven't been able to in the past. And they're still taking any tip that could come in. We know that DNA analysis has improved dramatically. We now have touch DNA, we have mixture analysis, we have the genealogy database work. Evidence that they might have gotten in 2008 could be testable today that wasn't back then. In organized or targeted crimes, a lot of times people know things, but they don't talk either out of fear or loyalty, self protection, or they might be implicating themselves if they came forward. We can still hope that if that is the case here, someone will talk. It is interesting to think about offenders who never reoffend. If that is the case, that makes it exponentially harder to solve.
Yeah.
That also can be the case when they don't leave behind any DNA or forensics, right? To me, this crime most closely resembles a targeted, pre planned homicide. And so, whether that means contract killing or some sort of criminal network, something adjacent, that makes the most sense, I think. But
Yeah.
also, I would need to look at those case files to make a really good, educated guess, I think.
Yeah,
What
for
do you
sure.
think?
I think so too. It's so hard because we don't know the why. It's like if someone did contract, why, but if it was that criminal network messaging or if she did find out something she wasn't supposed to know,
Hmm.
that makes sense. But then there's still those huge why questions and who would have planned this, you know?
Absolutely.
It's just so hard to know, especially when there are more files that are not released.
Yep.
Hopefully one day we can learn more, but
Yeah.
those huge why and who and those questions that we don't have any answers to makes it so hard to, I don't know, puzzle out
Mhm.
more of the case, I guess.
Yeah. It is very baffling and it feels so clean and fast and direct, targeted. It's really a scary case.
It is. And it was so fast and planned and premeditated. The blaring why questions just,
Yeah.
and if they so extensively questioned her family and friends and coworkers, is there more answers that we just don't know? Who knows? But
Yeah.
there's got to be something more.
Agreed. Well, if you're listening and you know something, even if you think it's very small or you think it wouldn't help or it's not important, a lot of times cases like this are often solved with that one small tip that people either didn't know was important or needed, or someone's just done keeping that secret. There is a $500,000 reward in this case. You can call Victoria British Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477, and we'll link that in the show notes. We'll list contact information for who to contact if that is you or you were in the area or you know people who did live in the area at the time, because Lindsay deserved to grow older. She deserved more Saturdays, more clients, more life, and someone took that. And her family deserves justice. And
Yeah.
this case still matters. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for this really tragic, heartbreaking case on Lindsay.
Scary case.
Hmm. If you want to learn more about the case, read more, or see the resources we used, you can visit our website, crimeclueless.com, and go to our blog, and we'll link that also in the show notes. We are Always so grateful for any rating or review. It really does help our show, and it's such a fast, free, and easy way to support Crime Clueless. You can leave a rating and a review on Apple, which means the world to us, and we read every single one. You can leave a rating on Spotify or Audible, and we truly appreciate each of those. We wanted to say a quick shout out and thank you to our supporters through Buzzsprout. Your support helps us continue to put all of our effort into researching these cases and helping Crime Clueless grow our community. I want to say thank you to our newest supporter on Buzzsprout, Justin. Thank you so much for your support. It means the world. It truly does help us. And with that, as always, remember, refuse to be clueless, careless, or caught off guard.
Not today, murders.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.